So when we go in and we're going to coach our people for improvement, we're going to stick to what we've always stuck with our 5 key principles. As we've been talking about, there's some of them that are going to be a little more useful than others. We kind of underline them. But I want you to keep in mind, when we talked about our 5 key principles, which were the things that address people's personal needs, they're all good, okay? You can't overdo your key principles. You can't be like, gosh, I used empathy and I should have used an involvement. They're all good. You can't overgive somebody self-esteem, okay? They're all good things. If you use all 5 every time you talk to somebody, you would not be doing anything wrong. You'd actually be doing them a service. So keep that in mind. What I want you to do when you walk away from this class is have an awareness of them. What we tend to do, we talk about the fact, some people say it's repetitive. It is repetitive because we want you to go back to your office saying, esteem, empathy, share, involve, support. So that as you're talking to somebody, you can say, you know what? I don't think I've used any empathy. And maybe you could insert it because we're creating the little guy who sits on your shoulder. You know, like in the cartoons, they have the good guy and the bad guy. We're trying to create for you a little good guy who just makes you a little bit more self-aware of how you converse with people. So as you're having that conversation, you can stop, and your little guy's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, you know what? I think that Pat needs a little shot of esteem. So I need to stop for a second and back up and make sure that I'm doing that. So let's look at those 5. I said they're not changing. As we're coaching people to improve their behavior, we want to make sure that we are maintaining or enhancing their self-esteem. It's unlikely that you're going to be enhancing someone's self-esteem when you're telling them they're doing something wrong. Okay? It's possible. Maybe they're doing most things right and just one thing wrong. But really what this is about is doing what? Yes, maintain the self-esteem. We're not damaging it. We're not making it worse. People should leave your office feeling just as good about themselves as they did when they came in. Okay? You are not hurting people. You are not making them go home and drink heavily. Right? Just a conversation. Remember we talked about data. If you're merely conveying facts, it's just facts. All right? As we are talking to people, you need to let them always feel that they are valued and respected by you as members of your team. And you need to absolutely believe that. You cannot put that on. Okay? Everybody's unique and you respect them. Even the ones who irritate you, even your worst performers. All right? As you move into the next step, we're talking about empathy. How did we start our conversation about coaching for improvement? What did we say it involved? Emotions. That's right. Okay. If we're dealing with emotions, what do we have to do? Bam! We have to reflect them back. If we're coaching for improvement, you know you're going to get emotion of some kind. So you need to be ready as a manager to shoot them right back at people. I know you're upset. I know you feel overwhelmed. It sounds like Psych 101. I know you're rolling your eyes a little bit, but it works. And I'm going to tell you a secret. It doesn't just work at work. Try it on your spouse. Yeah, I didn't take the garbage out. Sounds to me you're upset. It works. You need to acknowledge people's emotions. I had one guy who came to this class, came back for a follow-up, and told me that his wife wanted to thank us for what we taught him in class. But I'm just saying, you can use this anywhere. So use your empathy. Make sure that you're acknowledging people's emotion, that it's okay for them to feel that way. Again, you're not agreeing, you're acknowledging. That is one of the underlined ones for this part. If we're doing coaching for involvement, we want to make sure that we're using a lot of empathy. We're also going to be heavily involving our people. All right? This is a hard one. We don't like to involve people in the solutions. We like to have a conversation about coaching for improvement where we already have a solution, because we're the smart one. Back up. Ask them for solutions. Ask them how it can be fixed. What do they think would work? Try and involve people. It will go a long way for you. They're not always going to know, right? It's very true that people sometimes are going to say, I don't know, or they're just going to be a person who doesn't want to contribute, and they're going to be like, I don't know. You have an idea? No. What do you think would make it better? I don't know. If you have that guy, that's all right. You have suggestions, and you can say, well, what do you think about this? Would you like to ride along with Chuck? Would you like a little more training in this area? You can suggest things, but make sure you try and actively involve your person, especially at this point in conversation 1. Remember, this is a positive conversation where we expect improvement. It's not a negative conversation. You're still good cop at this point. Okay. Share. When we talked about share initially, we touched on this. This is a good time. Not only are you sharing data, Sometimes you're telling people stuff they don't know. You might have a top performer who doesn't know that he slipped off the pedestal. He thinks he's still doing good. You might say, you know what? Did you know your numbers have slipped 10%? What? So you may be surprising people. You're sharing data that they may not have access to. You're also going to share rationale. Here's why you need to fix it. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's affecting our whole team. And therefore, it's affecting our office, our branch, our state. If you can big picture it out for people, it's huge. It really helps them understand the impact of things. So go ahead and share that type of data if you have it. You know why you're doing something, and you can show the bigger impact other than, well, I just didn't do that. Here's how it affects people. Then do it. If you can share personal thoughts or stories about it, it may be a good time to. This is particularly effective with people who you may be trying to establish rapport with, or new people who feel uncertain. Think back to when you were new at your company or another company, and how that felt, how you kind of feel like you're on unsteady ground, like, oh, I think I'm doing good, I'm not sure I'm doing good, and here you're calling somebody in to tell them that they're actually not doing something good. So this is a good time to say, you know what, when I came here, I felt really off balance too. It took me a while to get my footings, and it took me a while to get my stats back where they were. I was a high-performing rep where I was before, but when I came here, it was hard for me to adjust, and that's normal for this company. Sharing that with people is really going to make them feel better about the fact that their performance is not where you need it to be. Okay? It also makes you more human. And trust me, when you expose your human side to people, they're going to want to work for you. It's going to make a better relationship for you. I know some of you don't like to do that. And if you don't have to do it, share a story about somebody else. Okay? If you don't want to tell them about a time when you were vulnerable, then you might say, you know what? I know somebody who started just like you, and for the first 4 months they were here, they struggled. Bottom of the barrel, and now that's my top performing person. So if you're more comfortable with that type of story, go ahead and tell it. Right? I know I had a rep one time who'd been with me for a couple of years, and on our file grading system we had 1s, 2s, and 3s, 3s being the best, 2s pretty much what everybody got, and 1 being really bad. She had a 1, I had to tell her she had a 1, and I got, yeah, you're right, tears. I got lots of tears, lots and lots of tears. And I had to say to her, you know what? I've had a 1. I had a 1, and I remember how heartbreaking it was, how it just really nails you to the ground. It doesn't mean that you're not a good rep. You're one of my best reps. You just, sometimes it happens. She fell off the wagon that day. Didn't mean that I don't respect her, and that's what she was worried about. She was worried about my impression of her as a worker, and I still thought she was tops, and I let her know that. You know, this is a bad file. It happened, but it happens to all of us. Let's move on, all right? And lastly is that whole support idea. Again, as a manager, continually supporting people. We talked about this being a good conversation. Hey, I think you can do it. You know, I have faith that you can fix this. It's very matter of fact. You know, if you can just bring this up 10%, everything will be smooth sailing. I know you can do it. I have every confidence in you. So you're supporting them, encouraging them, but you're not removing the responsibility. You're not saying, you know what, I'm going to have somebody help you for the next 2 weeks until you're caught up. You don't want to take away the responsibility initially. Initially, you need to make sure that you are encouraging people to do it, that you believe they can do it, and that you're not taking away from them their ability to accomplish it on their own. Okay? This is about belief in them. You have to give them the opportunity to succeed or fail. If they do fail, then that's going to come up in another conversation. But in this first conversation, it's all about good cop. Okay? Again, these are bigger conversations. Remember that on a regular basis, as you're interacting with people, you're going to continue to give them normal feedback. Okay? Feedback should always be timely, specific, and accurate. Obviously, your feedback needs to be accurate. And timely means if you can get it right then and right there, do it right then and right there. Okay? Don't wait. You can give somebody an attaboy when you see it, do it right then. And the more specific you are, the better. I worked with a guy who used to come in, he was a new manager for our team. Very happy, positive guy. We were so excited when we got him. But he'd come through every morning kind of high-fiving you. Whoa, hey, good morning, whoa, whoa, so glad to see you guys. And everybody would laugh, and he was so much fun, and it was just great. But you know what? He didn't know what we were doing on a daily basis. He never looked in our files. He didn't understand our work. And so it was a real hollow happiness and acknowledgement. how much more effective it would have been if he'd come in and said, you know what, Peggy, I was reading your Bennett file last night, and I was extremely impressed with the detail and the quality of the notes that you put in there. And I just wanted to let you know that I've read it, and it was really a good job. And you know what? For me, that makes me feel really good. Okay, he looked at something that I did. He's giving me personal recognition, and not just a happy high five cheerleader. Okay? I mean, happy high five cheerleader is good. I'm not telling you don't do that. It's good. Make sure you're doing the other stuff too. Make people feel that you see and you recognize their work, both good and bad. Okay? That's important to them.